Foreign logging companies are sharpening their blades for a final dissection of Papua New Guinea's rainforests. This is Silas Daguilara. Silas is a member of a small tribe of landowners from the easternmost tip of mainland Papua New Guinea, the Kakabai of Milne Bay. Silas is taking us to the rainforest his people have lived in for thousands of years. The only member of his people to have left his village and region for a university education, he has returned home after nearly 30 years to discover that life isn't quite as it used to be.
What you see and what you hear in the background is a road being constructed for the logging purposes. The logging in this area has been going on for the past 6 years, and this is the end of its 6th year. The company itself is a Malaysian-based company, but PNG registered. The local people here, the landowners, have been against the logging company, but due to the government authorizing the companies to come through, the landowners just have no power, nothing of whatsoever at all. The minute they stand up and talk, a lot of money is being poured out to shut them up, and very little income. They accept this as being a payment, not knowing that this is a shortcoming. But on the long run, the effects of what is happening now will be so immense. But village people, due to lack of consultation by the company, between the company and the landowners, they don't know the after effects of what's going to happen to them.
In all, the Kakabai number about 2,000 and live in 3 villages in the lower mountains of the Owen Stanley Range. Like over 800 other tribes throughout PNG, they have their own language and customs and live what basically amounts to a subsistence lifestyle. We are in the village of Taquataquai. To reach it, one must make a 3-hour trek through water, mud and rainforest up the Wegulani River.
I want my village to be developed. I started very early, trying my best to help my people. I started off with forming a youth group. We try to do small things, teaching them church rules, and because most of the people here do not read and write. So I tried my best to translate that in our language. In regard to the logging company, I was hoping that they could help me, but most of the time I was found a stranger in their office, and this made me very disappointed. With that, I have an idea that it is better for us to do things ourselves.
My life, up until now, has not changed. The only change is the machinery and the destruction taking place. Even though we look happy, our bush has been taken over and destroyed without the rewards that were promised. The forest is our livelihood. All of the animals we hunt and all the food that we grow, the forests have been destroyed. My concern is for the younger generation. Since the arrival of the logging company, our fishing rivers have been destroyed. Hunting grounds have been destroyed. Animals have gone to other areas. Fish have disappeared.
Former judge of the PNG Supreme Court, Brian Brunton has lived in Papua New Guinea for over 30 years. In recent times, he has legally represented forest landowners in landmark court cases against logging companies.
In terms of regional significance, it is the last upstanding forest, untouched forest in the Asia-Pacific region. You have to think in terms of the forest stretching across the Indonesian border, and you have to think in terms of the island of New Guinea as a whole. And so the forests of Papua New Guinea and the forests of what is now called Papua form probably the most important untouched forest in Asia, in Asia Pacific. In global terms, outside the Amazon, I'd say this is probably the most significant forest.
New Guinea is known as the most botanically rich island on the planet. Its tropical rainforests cover over 3/4 of its total landmass. This gigantic wilderness is said to contain a staggering 5% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity. But many areas, including the land of the Kakabai, have still not seen a biological survey of any kind. This area is next on the loggers' agenda. But science and statistics mean little to those who are just as home in the rainforest as all the creatures in it. So why do they allow a logging company in at all? In some cases, it's the promises of cash, development and infrastructure. But in other cases, people find that their land has been signed away by somebody else.
Before the contracts were signed, our village was one village that was going to be affected by the logging operations. Contracts were not signed by our village people, but people from the lowland, from the coast, knowing that we own the majority of the big forest, rainforest. So they signed the documents on the contract in regards to logging without the consultation with our village people. So in the end, our village people actually had no idea of what the benefits were going to come through because of the logging, what was going to happen.
With their land signed away and loggers arriving on their doorstep uninvited, the Kakabai people have struggled to gain recognition as rightful landowners. Belated timber royalties are now forthcoming. They say other promised benefits have so far been denied them.
In the end, practically there was nothing. There was a man here selected to represent, namely Martin, to represent our village and put on the board of directors, committee, not the directors, on the board of committees. But they were calling him directors to make him think that, this is the position I hold within the company. Hopefully the promised infrastructure developments will come through. But to this day, there is nothing, and we are still waiting.
Logging concessions in Papua New Guinea are huge, covering areas of land that may belong to a large number of different people. Signposts signifying which clan owns which part of the forest dot the landscape. But even before logging reached the Kakabai people's customary land, the operation was running into trouble. The timber permit fell into the hands of a liquidator, and the liquidator contracted Saban Enterprises, a subsidiary of the Malaysian timber giant Rimbinan Hijau, to manage the operation.
They left a huge debt which for some unknown reason ran with the land and ran with the forest. And then a deal was done with the Forest Authority and with Rimbinan Hijau, whereby the timber permit went into the hands of a liquidator who's Stinton Spence. Now Stinton Spence's office is right next door to the lawyer's office from Sabam, which is a Rimbinan Hijau subsidiary. So there does appear to be at least a geographic connection between the two.
Does bribery by logging companies play a role in securing their concessions?
Very much. That is the order of the day. Wherever there is a logging company, and I believe the same company that is logging here has either branches or its parent company logging in almost every province of this country. And bribery is the name of the game at the moment. Since I left and came here, I've been bribed with my around about 4 times. There were keys of the new vehicles thrown to me, asking me to go out and drive away in a vehicle. I refused all those because it was all bribery.
How is a typical logging agreement with landowners obtained by a timber company in Papua New Guinea?
Normally what happens is that the loggers will go in first and identify community leaders that are amenable to the logging company, and they will sew up a relationship with those community leaders through gifts. And the sort of gifts that you can expect to see will be second-hand motor vehicles, outboard motors, canoes, etc. like that. So the loggers do their work on the ground. This is generally before the Forest Authority has even any idea as to what's going on.
Bella Noel is the PNG Forest Authority's field officer in the logging concession. To monitor an operation that clears over 8,000 hectares of rainforest per year is a difficult job for one person. Have you found in general that Saban has followed the code of practice in this operation?
In observation, in some degrees they have. In some they have failed a bit, but it's still required. We still have to be very close to them, to push them, to tell them to improve on those.
What proportion of the logs harvested in this area are leaving the country?
Since the logging started here, it's a log export operation. At the moment, maybe say 90% goes for export. The 10% is maybe say they're rejected by the buyers, comes back to the sawmill. So basically, you see that most of it goes on to being exported.
Would you like to see that figure change in the future?
Of course, if I think so, because Milne Bay Province, by the look, we don't have that resource, and if we want to see our common objective of sustainability, we need to encourage, reduce the annual quota, and maybe go into more in the, local processing or in downstream processing.
How effective is the National Forest Board in managing and monitoring the uses of PNG's rainforest?
I don't think it's effective at all. It is very much driven and manipulated by the professional forest officers within the Papua New Guinea Forest Authority, who set the board up, so to speak, and get the board to do what they want. And really, the only thing those officers really know is how to carry out an industrial logging operation. And of course, when I say the only thing they know is how to carry out an industrial logging operation, it's how to carry it out in a half-baked manner, because they don't do it properly. So there's a continual cycle of pressure on the board to get more hectarage approved for forest management agreements, and then to get the timber permits issued.
After walking to the end of the road, we discover bulldozers, pushing further into virgin rainforest and further into the Kakabai's land. Along with the landowners, who have been doing this for some time now, we stand back and watch. But the villagers from Te Quatakwa have also set up camp on site, keeping a close watch on what goes on.
I'm here because I'm a landowner for this area that now the company is operating. And I'm here to make sure the logs are counted and recorded So as soon as I finish recording, I go to town, check with the forest office, make sure that the number of logs must be same as mine that I've recorded. So that's the reason why I'm here. I'm here because this is my land, my motherland. I almost stopped the company not to log because I feel sorry for my boss. At the same time, I need the money for my living.
I'm unhappy. I wanted to set up roadblocks to stop the logging, but the agreements have already been signed by our government.
So the only benefit the local people see is royalty payments that come via the government. The company pays the royalty payment. That's just about all. The company, on the other end, promises to build roads, build up churches, build schools, and so forth. But this has not taken place. And before the communities start to complain about the infrastructure not taking place, the contracts are over. The company folds up, packs its tins, and goes off.
Do you believe operations in Milne Bay are sustainable?
Well, maybe a bit, yes.
Saban's parent company, Rimbian and Hijau, otherwise known as RH, is the biggest logger of tropical woods in the world, with operations in Borneo, South America, West Africa, Eastern Russia and the Pacific Islands. The Rimbian and Hijau group is set to control anywhere between 50 to 80% of all commercial logging in PNG. In the Malaysian language, Rimbian and Hijau translates as forever green.
Rimbian and Hijau has begun to move into South America. It's got operations in Brazil, in Guyana, and it's begun to attract international attention because of that. It's been able to get away with things in Papua New Guinea because Papua New Guinea is essentially a backwater, a periphery of the periphery, so that tropical forests don't mean much in Melanesia to Australians, and they certainly don't mean a lot in Europe or North America, and they mean virtually nothing in Asia at all.
What kind of development would you like to see take place here?
Oh, I hope to see everybody with maybe semi-permanent buildings, because we find it very hard to get sago. Sago lives here. And with that, transportation is very hard here. So we need a road.
Have the logging company lived up to all their promises?
None. None. They have not done anything.
What was promised?
They promised road and a community hall that we are now doing it ourselves. They promised me, but it has not come true. As I said, I was always treated like a stranger in their office.
Yeah, they make the promises to buy us a community iron, but then they did not do the promise. And also the road itself, they should dig it up to Takwatakwai, but then nothing happened. The empty promises.
The people of Takwatakwai eventually decided to build their own community hall. To get started on it, they purchased their own roofing iron, hauling it up the Wegulani River on their backs.
And the other thing is their cubit. The per cubit they said was 10 kina per cubit, about the logs that they export from us to the overseas country. And I don't know how much do they raise from them when they export to the overseas countries. But as for us, they give us 10 kina per cubic meter.
While the Kakabai are receiving 10 kina per cubic metre in royalties, some of the best timbers available on the market are trucked out of their forest. But a document prepared by the local PNG Forest Authority reveals that since 1995, the PNG government and Saban have made themselves far more. While the government has taken about 35 kina per cubic metre in log export taxes, Saban has been exporting unprocessed raw logs for an average 155 kina per cubic metre. It was on these same docks in 1997 that Saban was caught exporting rosewood in raw log form, an illegal practice in PNG. There was no telling how long it had been occurring. Saban shares the site with the sawmill of Milne Bay Industries, or MBI, the so-called landowner company subcontracted to haul in the logs for Saban. The logs rejected by Saban as not being of high enough quality to export to the Asian market go through the MBI sawmill. Upon our arrival at the site, Roy Daniels, a local landowner and employee of MBI, is assigned to show us around.
Well, this ship just came from Korea and she'll be loading around about 4,000 cubic meters. After loading, she travel back to Korea. Well, most of our ships come and load around 4,000 to 6,000, and some of them up to more than 10,000 cubic meters.
Roy believes that too much rainforest is being shipped out of PNG in raw log form.
As a person of my own, I feel that such logging should be stopped somehow so that we can produce our own timber, like in downstream processing, where we can sell locally to assist our own people within the area, the province and the country.
Another day, another visit to the site and another ship is in, this time from Japan. We accompany some of the logs out on the barge as they leave PNG's shores for the last time. Virtually all of the timber produced in PNG is in the form of raw logs for the export market. In fact, after Malaysia itself, PNG is the world's second largest exporter of tropical logs. Japan is the largest consumer of these, although the People's Republic of China is soon expected to take over as the major buyer.
Basically, I think when we came here, we as a businessmen, the intention is to make money and we go home.
Joseph Wong is a former manager of Saban Enterprises, but he now heads the landowner company.
I think the industry doesn't change much because basically all the industry is foreign owned, and less practically nothing's owned by the local people. And I think as far as foreign investor concerns, they come in, they invest money, they need to make money. I mean, that's the first principle of business.
Joseph maintains that he would like to see the operation head towards downstream processing and a local industry. But he emphasises that MBI are powerless to do anything while the liquidator continues to hold the timber permit.
Sabang actually has no partnership there, has nothing to do with the Milne Bay industry. We only have started up the downstream processing when actually we formed MBI together with the landowner company. That's how we look at the long-term benefit for them. And then from there, then we have this sawmill and all this. Before it's 100% export. But we still have a long way to go if we really want to achieve sustainable resource development.
But does the term landowner company mean that all the landowners are taken into account?
Landowner company itself, it was formed in 1994, and since the landowner company was formed, we people from inland know nothing about the landowner company.
There is also the question of MBI's other contract, the clearing of lowland rainforest for vast oil palm plantations, mainly owned by Britain's Commonwealth Development Corporation. It is here that one truly begins to understand the football field analogies that conservation groups use when describing rainforest loss. Oil palm arrived in Milne Bay in the mid-1980s. One landowner, Penny Caesar, lost his forest land to the scheme.
these logs here. Now we see these logs here. Most of these trees were fallen. As I said, about 5,000 hectares was developed. Rainforest area, they cut it down to make way for the oil palm to stand. So, but then there's a very big waste because they just let them to rot like this. And even some just to bend them.
Oil palm has a life cycle of under 30 years. With the first cycle nearing the end of its life, the plantation areas are being expanded.
The lifespan of oil palm tree might be 25 years. And after 30 years, the oil palm is nothing. And it goes back to the landowner. So he owns nothing.
And although they're putting out that they are really clearing land that's been logged over or garden land, that is essentially not true. It's not true from two points of view. First is that virgin forest has gone, so that they're actually clear felling virgin forest. Secondly, with a selective logging process, you're meant to leave the forest intact. So if the land has been logged over, then by definition that's meant to be an intact forest.
What does the future hold for the timber industry in Milne Bay?
I think the future is very bright as long as we go into downstream processing instead of log export. Log export, there is no future for log export. And there's not enough resource to cater for log export in Milne Bay. And Milne Bay has a lot of nice good timber, walnut, rosewood, ebony, pencil cedars. But if we keep on just exporting this, it's going to be to finish very soon.
Meanwhile, for Silas d'Aguilara and the landowners of Tuquatuquai, it is simply a case of investing their royalties wisely and making the best of what has happened to them. Silas has taken out a court order preventing the logging from coming too close to Tuquatuquai, in the hope that the villagers may be able to operate their own sustainable milling in the future.
If the concessions have been granted already, there's nothing much we can do. All we can do is make noise, talk about it, and it just falls to the ground because the concessions have been handed out already by our parliamentarians or those people who are in authority.
The Wegulani River has been swollen by a big rain, and to beat the flood we must leave immediately. The whole village gathers in front of their church to wish us a safe journey. For the men and women taking their root crops and fruit to market, this is a well-worn track, and you can well understand their desire for a road. Half an hour after we make the final crossing, the river is too big and too fast. School children returning home for the weekend are cut off. On the Huon coast of PNG's Milne Province, events of a different nature are taking place. For the first time, the non-government and community organisations of Papua New Guinea have united under the banner of the PNG Eco-Forestry Forum. To launch this new national body, over 200 people are attempting a 10-day, 150-kilometre ocean canoe voyage to the provincial capital, Lae.
We're making history with this trip. A long time ago, our ancestors used to sail from Morribee to Salamoa. This is the first time we've made the voyage. We believe this is making history for the Zia tribe.
We row until the wind fills the sail. When it's strong, we'll sail to Lae like our ancestors did in the past. They used a canoe like this. When they were doing their markets, they would carry their produce and sail to Finschhafen. They would take their clay pots and their mats and their food on board.
Most of these people only know of such journeys from the stories of their ancestors. The old voyages were based around trade or warfare and were fraught with dangers. But this voyage is being made together by crews from a number of tribes, some of whom were traditional enemies only 2 generations ago. And they are flying a flag in the face of a common enemy.
Inside this country of ours, there's been a lot of environmental destruction. Big companies have destroyed our forests, our water. Future generations will not see the same forests that we see now. It is very important to make companies and the government recognise what the NGOs are doing in the country.
The crews bring with them a diversity of experiences. Some have put their lands off limits to the foreign loggers by establishing eco-forestry activities, while others have already experienced the methods of the timber giants.
The company came and destroyed my forest. I still look at it and I'm not happy. Not happy with my ruined forest and destroyed land. Before, we had good water, but now it's no good. Other things have been ruined as well. So now these eco-forestry activities have come up. I'm happy that my forest must be left alone, and my children grow up to another future.
Eco-forestry is aimed at managing forest use so that resources are used sustainably. Ecosystems are protected, and the benefits of forest products are retained by the traditional owners. When conducted successfully, it allows communities to cut their own timber without the large-scale destruction and economic plunder that comes with the big logging companies. The canoe voyage commences from Sapa village at the mouth of the Warrior River. A large eco-forestry venture known as the Eco Home Project has been established in the valley by the Lae-based Village Development Trust and the international organisation Habitat for Humanity, in partnership with the local landowners. The project site covers 160,000 hectares of primary and secondary lowland rainforest, which is collectively owned by the people of 2 tribes and 22 villages.
In here, you can see we haven't done so many destruction here because we are using our manpower to get the logs together to mill.
As opposed to industrial logging, no heavy machinery or bulldozers are used in eco-forestry. A portable mill known throughout PNG as a walkabout sawmill is carried in by the villagers and the timber milled on site. Dusty Jamunu is a mill operator for the program. The timber is used to build houses for the local people and to help provide a small income for the landowners.
So I think when foreign logging companies come in, I think they will use the bulldozers to bulldoze some square meter of land to get these 6 trees that we milled for the last month.
How does eco-forestry operation benefit local landowners?
Especially the landowners, they benefit fully in the timber, I would say that, because you can see in the log export, landowners get only 12 kina from 1 cubic meter for the logs. But in here, 1 cubic meter we produce, we can sell it for 300 kina, especially this logs wood now we are milling. The landowner or the resource owner can get 300 kina straight from his forest, rather than 12 kina per cubic meter, which is a piece of cake.
Dusty has also discovered the price you can pay for speaking out against logging in PNG.
I was campaigning against logging and emphasizing on small scale. And Yamagaipa came in. Yamagaipa is a landowner company in the area. Yamagaipa, the developer, is the subsidiary company of the Ruminant Nijao. So I campaigned against that, and the loggers bought police to bust me up. So 1993, September 15, the police arrested me at my own village, Bao, and then took me to the logging company site. They locked me up in one of the logging company storeroom. And then on the 16th of September 93, they officially arrested me.
Jarugo is the oldest man in the Warrior Valley village of Saigara. He speaks of the time when the landowners were approached by a big logging company.
Now, logging company come up.
The company came and gathered us all in a big meeting with all the people of the Zia tribe in Zare village. They were sweet-talking us and lying to us. Having seen the ways of a previous company, we understand what's going on. They told us stories about how they'd take our trees and help us. But this is my ancestral land and it's not worth it.
The main objective of the Eco Home project is to meet the housing needs of the local people through the sustainable use of timber resources.
The Habitat Program's housing scheme is helping plenty of Warrior Valley people. This house belongs to my sister, and I've been working together with the carpenters. We have 5 criteria to getting a house. One criteria is that you must plant 10 trees before you finish.
The bylaw of the program is whatever you mill, you have to put it back. So in here you can see we have made a around about 10 by 40 meter disturbance in the forest here. So we have to plant this back again.
Terry Umber's house is nearing completion.
Yes, this house is
I'm very happy with this house. The small saw is great. It doesn't damage the forest too much. Small and good.
33 houses have been built through the Eco Home project over the past 3 years, and a community centre is now under construction.
2 big aims with this work is to look after our culture and forests. We will have training facilities once the centre is finished. It will be our community centre.
The project also has a gender program and places a strong emphasis on the role of women in its activities. Maria Gary is the Village Development Trust's technical officer and a trained sawmill operator.
The technical officer is both a forester and a mechanic, to doing sawmillings like this. You have to be trained properly to do all these things. Many women in Papua New Guinea thought that the job is only for men. But I can see that we women can do better than, we women can be equal as men.
A few kilometres from the mouth of the Wegulani River is the village of Bao. The village has been a pioneer of eco-forestry in PNG. A spin-off of the eco-forestry projects has been the expansion of the Tulip Women's Club, who own and operate a guest house for visitors to the area.
I began with 2 thatched roof guest houses. When VDT started their project, they helped us build this guest house. The money pays for the children's school fees.
The difficulties faced by rural communities to pay their school fees in PNG has been cited in numerous reports as a major factor in their decisions to allow big logging companies to operate their forests in return for royalty money. The revenue raised from small-scale forestry in Bao also allowed the community to purchase a boat and start a small transport business between the villages of the Warrior and Lay.
Eco-forestry benefits Papua New Guineans just because they get the resource, they get the timbers out from the bush, it's their own resource. The housing, they can build houses, they can produce it and sell the timbers, they can earn money from that, and they can just run a small sawmill business.
As the crews make their way along the coast, they stop overnight at isolated coastal villages. Each arrival is greeted with a sing-sing and an information session that lasts well into the evening. The talk is of logging companies, the value of ocean and forest resources, and the importance of maintaining traditions through song and story. In the morning, the canoes move on, joined by another crew from the host village.
I'm happy to come on this voyage. I like to explain what we are doing, teaching all the people and travelling together.
For many in these villages, it is the first time they've heard that they can say no to the big logging companies. A number of organisations within the PNG Eco-Forestry Forum have sponsored a canoe so that canoe teams and the people can learn about projects all over the country.
We're journeying with other tribal groups and we learn from each other. At the same time, we learn new things. My team and I feel really happy with this voyage. When we mix with the other groups, there are no enemies. We're happy to work together. So by working with the other groups, we learn what the different sponsor organisations are doing.
The journey is as exhausting as the volcanic coastline is spectacular. The heat is unrelenting, there is no shade on the water. And it doesn't help when your headache tablets sink to the bottom of the Solomon Sea.
Oh no!
At the village of Lababia, the local people along with the Village Development Trust are taking a different approach to protecting their forest: ecotourism. The David Suzuki Lookout is named after the most famous visitor to the area. The view takes in part of an area the landowners, the Kamiali people, have set aside as a 47,000 hectare wildlife management area, taking in forest, mangrove, river, lagoon and coral reef ecosystems. The Kamiali Guest House and Eco-Forestry Training Centre was built with grant money from a number of local and international organisations, which in turn provided an alternate source of income for the villagers. The VDT brings trainees here to learn the ins and outs of small-scale sawmilling.
In 1960, the Lutheran Church came and brought with them a logging company. The company was from Germany. They came here and made an agreement together with the church and shook hands with us. We agreed to have the logging company here in the Laukano area.
Further along the coast towards Lae, the villagers of Laukano have lasting memories of the time a logging company operated on their customary land.
Plenty of bark went into the sea and we lost our fish. We didn't get the royalties like the companies hand out today. We got some money, bonus, they call it a bonus, for each tree stump. We got paid for the stumps at the end of the month for each tree we cut down. Since we got independence, plenty of companies have gone into other areas and they've destroyed the land belonging to all those people. Back here, we were not happy with the church's sawmill and we threw them out. We talked to the church and told the company to go.
Lae is now within sight, and unlike Japanese casualties from the 1940s, the 13 canoes have held firm.
We sail the canoe following our traditions. The tree that we cut is very strong. There's a lot of work in building it from a tree. We carve the tree. Our ancestors showed us how to make the rope we use to fasten the canoe.
This is no ordinary timber industry expo. As the crews approach Lae, the harbour foreshore is transformed into a celebration of the achievements of 2 decades of eco-forestry in PNG and the launch of the PNG Eco-Forestry Forum. The canoes land in front of a large crowd. The event receives widespread coverage both on television and in the newspapers, with a 4-page lift-out in the country's major newspaper. As production of this film ends, the government of PNG discusses lifting a 2-year moratorium on the issuing of new logging concessions. The Eco-Forestry Forum opposes this, but there is heavy pressure from the multi-billion-dollar timber industry to lift the ban. If the timber giants get their way, the rape and pillage of these outstanding tropical rainforests will continue unabated.
What's wrong with the governance of forestry in Papua New Guinea is that there is no governance, that there's no conservation in Papua New Guinea, and there's very little real forest management.
The chronically corrupt and virtually bankrupt government of PNG is propped up by Australian aid and World Bank loans. This money subsidises export logging, and it seems that both donors are willing to renege on commitments to withhold funds until the assault upon PNG's forests is brought under control. 30 new logging concessions are proposed in PNG, covering millions of hectares of tropical rainforest. A review team ordered to examine these found that 11 out of the 30 were illegal. A further 8 had not been tendered properly. The canoe crews return to small villages encompassed by the vast rainforests. Some return to eco-forestry strongholds, others to land threatened by logging. Like you and I, and the 800 tribes not visited in this documentary, they hold hopes and fears about the future of their land. In the meantime, Silas Daguilara has returned home to face the onslaught.
The current logging operations which is happening here and which is happening around the country is really killing the people's livelihood. Only a few people realize it, educated people, but money is everything these days, so when they are bribed they take it. It's a sad sight, it's a sad story, unless our educated people whose areas are affected go back to their villages or their areas and tell the truth. The problem will just go on and create so much misery for the people after the logging company has taken its millions and gone.
The empty promises.
Yeah.